We're on Daf Lamed Ches, and we're going to take a look at a Gemara here on the top of Lamed Ches on the Beis. And you may recall that we had a whole sugya about individuals who had, let's say they were endowed with great talents that could have been used to contribute to the benefit, the welfare of the Beis Hamikdash, and they refused to do so. And the Mishnah used some very harsh terms to describe these people. Shem Rishoyim Yirakev. And in the case of those who were called L'Shvach, which is in the previous Mishnah, you know, we had Mudbaz and Hileni Amalka, and we had Nicanor, all those who came forward with great selfless contributions. We said, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. And we quoted the pasuk that we should bless the Tzadik. And based on this Gemara about blessing Tzadikim, the Gemara here on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis has an entire extensive Agadah in which it is describing the tzaddikim and how valuable they are. And just to sort of, if I could summarize most of the Agadah, we'll go through some of it today, in one sentence, it would be that the tzaddik keeps the world going. So what I'd like to analyze with you here is a Gemara of Rabbi Chia Bar Abba, the name of Yochanan. So if you're on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis, you should count up to the beginning of the wide lines, which would be approximately, I would say, 13 lines up from the bottom of Lamed Ches Amud Beis. And this Agadah goes till the end of the parak. So we're only actually skipping a little bit of Gemara, which is the Agadah about those Rishoyim who refuse to share their knowledge with others. How critical is it for the world to have a tzaddik such that God will not let him die until somewhere on the face of the globe, we don't know exactly where, an infant is born, and that infant is a tzaddik. So there's never a moment in which the world, the globe, is bereft of a tzaddik. Shenemar v'zorach hashemesh uba hashemesh ad shalokavsa shimsho shel Eli zarcho zarcha shimsho shel Shmuel Aramosi. Before Eli, the great Eli HaKohen, died, Shmuel was born, such that there was never a moment without a great tzaddik. And here we have an embellishment in the name of the Marsha. Marsha says, first of all, notice that in the pasuk the word shemesh appears twice. V'zarach hashemesh uba hashemesh. And that parallels, because it's really not necessary, you could have said v'zarach uba hashemesh, these two tzaddikim, both of whom are shining, they're bringing the light down to the lower worlds. And the second shining is going to begin before the shkia, before the setting of the first shining. Now, Eli, he says, was the Gadol Adar. He was the greatest in his generation. He was a Kohen Gadol as well, and a shofet. It seems that Eli HaKohen, and this is something brand new to me, was called Mimamake HaTorah. He had insights into the depths of the Torah. And the entire transmission of Torah was impacted by Eli Cohen, so that his insights and his understanding of Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral law, was transmitted from one generation to the other. From whence did Eli receive the Torah? Who kibla mi Pinchas? And Pinchas had received the Torah from the Zkanim. The Zkanim had received the Torah from Yoshua, and Yoshua from Moshe Rabbeinu. And basically, Eli is a critical link in the chain that takes us from Moshe Rabbeinu to Yoshua, through the Zkanim, and through Pinchas to Eli, and now Eli transmits the Torah to Shmuel. So the next link in the chain is going to be Shmuel. And now we add a statement of the Medrash on a pasuk in Shmuel. It says, "V'ner Elokim terem yichba," before the candle of the Lord was extinguished. Shmuel shocheh beheichal Hashem. He's living in the Heichal, because if you remember, his mother Chana had brought him to the Mishkan of Shiloh. Vayikra Hashem el Shmuel, and God calls out to Shmuel. Shmuel has a nevuah while Eli is still alive. So Shmuel reaches that level of the tzaddik, of that sunshine, during the lifetime of Eli, before Eli's light is extinguished. The Maharsha says that in truth, the Gemara could have given untold numbers of examples of the next Gadol is born before the previous Gadol dies, but the Gemara wants to focus our attention on Eli and Shmuel, because Eli is the link in the transmission, passing on the Torah that he received from Pinchas to Shmuel, and Shmuel will now be the next link in the tradition. Amar Rabbi Chia Bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara, as you know, often in Agaditos will bring you a whole string of statements with a certain tradition that so-and-so transmitted the Torah of so-and-so. So Rabbi Chia is transmitting the Torah of Rabbi Yochanan. Bra HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shatzadikim Mu'atim. Not every generation, or maybe you could say no generation, is really blessed with a myriad of tzaddikim. Tzaddikim are rare and far between. And therefore, Oman Ushsalan Bechol Dar V'Dar. God took the tzaddikim, these special neshamas, and he planted them in different generations. Shenemar, it says in Shmuel, Ki Lashem Mitzuke Eretz, Vayoshes Aleim Tevel. It was revealed in front of the Almighty that these are Amudei Haaretz. Mitzuke Haaretz means they are the pillars of the earth, not Hercules. We're not talking about physical strength. We're talking about the greats, the tzaddikim. And mu'atim, they are few and far between. Lachein pizram b'chol hadoros. God separates them, spreads them out, so that each generation will be able to be founded on this foundation of a tzaddik. And all the doros are maintained and sustained by the tzaddikim of those doros, because there's no foundation that can keep the world going unless there are tzaddikim in that generation. And of course, everyone wants to know who are the tzaddikim of the generation. We don't always know who they are. I would just add that the word tzaddikim needs another adjective to describe the tzaddikim that we're talking about that keep the world going. They are tzaddikim amitiyim, true, genuine tzaddikim. And in order to appreciate what that phrase means, tzaddikim amitiyim, you'd have to learn Torah's Breslov, because in Breslov there is so much. Almost every Torah, every page is about the tzaddikim And it's always the tzaddikim amiti, the tzaddikim who take nothing for themselves. They are in total control over all their desires. Their nefesh is what's called mizukach, pure, completely pure. All they do is strive to reach higher and higher levels of spirituality. And these are very rare. You know, you talk about Moshe Rabbeinu, you can talk about a Yoshua, you can talk about Mordechai, HaYehudi, and so forth and so on. But they are rare breeds, you know, that are tzaddikim amitim. They keep up the entire world. Now, how do we know that the word mitsuke means amude? That's based on a pasuk that says, "Vayatziku es Aron Elokim," when they had to return the Aron that was taken captive by the Plishtim. Keep in mind, we suffer from the Plishtim. They had to keep the Aron stood up on what's called in the pasuk Vayatziku, which is amudim. That's how they kept the Aron straight, and they were able to transport it. And the pasuk in Mishlei Perek Yud says, "Tzadik Yisod Olam." The entire foundation of the earth is the tzaddik. Now let's add another comment here. The Marsha says that the word shaslan is a very critical word. We shouldn't miss that word, because there is a Kabbalistic concept behind this word shaslan. Shatzadikim chozrim li'olam begilgul o be'ibur neshama b'shvil l'zakos esador. And that's called eish shasul. What's the difference between eitz natua and eitz shasul? Natua means you planted. Shasul means you replanted. You have shtilim. How do you say shtilim in English? Too bad we don't have a dictionary here. You know, when you buy a plant and you replant it, what's that called in English? Anybody help me over here? Can you look up the word shasil for me? You have access to Google? Do you hear me? No. Okay, that's welcome to Zoom. Anyway, why does the pasuk say that God shasil? Because we're talking about neshamas of tzaddikim that are reincarnated in different generations in order to keep those generations afloat. Shenatu v'chazu v'shaslu b'makom acher. And Rabbi Yochanan is saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shasal as tzaddikim b'chol dar. Lirmos lezeh shemachazrim pam nosefes be'ibur o begilgul lizkos es doron. Again, you have to know more about Kabbalistic concepts, the difference between ibur and gilgul. But in any event, the main point is that these tzaddikim have to come back down to the earth. Now, Reb Chia Didei Amar, Reb Chia himself, even though he was quoting Reb Yochanan, he added another pasuk, and he felt that you could derive the same identical conclusion of God planting the tzaddikim in different generations from the pasuk in Shmuel Aleph, Raglei Chasidov Yishma. And God will protect the legs of the tzaddik. What does that mean? Of the chassid. First of all, the Gemara objects Chasidov is in the plural, tuva mashma. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Chasido ksiv. You should change, make sure that you write it correctly. It's Chasido in the singular, because we're, bishvil Chasido, for the sake of one chassid, God will maintain and supervise and protect the entire universe, all because of one tzaddik. Now, you know that there's a super commentary on the Agadah, which is called the Ein Yaakov. You're familiar with it. He asks, the Gemara had previously quoted Rabbi Eliezer that God created the world for the sake of one tzaddik. So what is Rabbi Yochanan adding over here when he says that one tzaddik is enough to keep the world going? I mean, if God created the world for one tzaddik, obviously one tzaddik is enough to keep the world going. And the Ein Yaakov says the following: Rabbi Yochanan lomad mikan shafilu kasher yesh harbe chotim ba'olam. Even if the world is full of sinners, yachal ha'olam liskayim be also dar b'schus tzaddik echad. Meaning, okay, God created the world for one tzaddik, but what happens if the world is evil, is rotten, and it's full of Rishonim? Says Rabbi Yochanan, God still justifies keeping the world in existence because of one single tzaddik. And we have a Mishnah in Avos in the first parak, al shloshim dvarim olam omed al Torah ve'al avoda ve'al gmilus chasodim. It seems that what keeps the world going is these three things. Or, for example, there's another Mishnah that says al adin ve'al emes ve'al shalom. Here it seems that the world is kept going simply because of one tzaddik. So he quotes the Ein Eliyahu, which I'm not sure who that is. It might be the Vilna Gaon. Anyway, Rabbi Eliezer diber b'tzadik gamur u'bishvilo k'dai hayo libarei ha'olam. Rabbi Yochanan diber af b'tzadik she'eno kol kach. He's not the greatest of all tzaddikim. We can talk about a tzaddik amiti, as I said before, and he's not necessarily a tzaddik gomor, but he still is a tzaddik amiti. You know, he reaches almost to his potential. And Nikomakov yochel ha'olam liskayim b'skuso k'divrei hakasu v'tzadik yisod olam. He says the following: HaMishnah osekes, the Mishnah in Avos, b'dvarim shebishvilam roy hoya olam lihibarik. But our Mishnah osekes b'dvarim she'olam iskayim b'skusam. Man sheyesh rishonim ba'olam. Rab Chia bar Abba, Rab Yochanan, Kevin sheyatzu rov shnosav shal adam alochata, shuv eno chotet. If most of the years of his life has passed and he's a tzaddik, he hasn't sinned, he won't sin. He's guaranteed that he won't sin. Shenemar, again, the same pasuk in Shmuel, Raglei Chasidov Yishmar. God protects the raglayim of the chassid. And Ragli is milashon sof, right? The raglayim are at the end, the bottom of the body, and it's a reflection of the end of a person's life. And Hashem is shomer his chasidim at the end of their life. Raglei chasidim yishma. The Beirab Shilo Amri. We can guarantee that he won't sin in any particular sin if he has overcome the temptation for that sin on 2 occasions. And this bothers our minds because we're familiar with 3 as a chazaka. Why the number 2? Shenemar Raglei Chasidov Yishma. Regolim, what does it mean, regolim? It says ragle. Regolim means on 2 occasions. If you want to jack it up to 3 occasions, then you have to add the word shalosh regolim. And shalosh regolim means 3 times. So 3 times we have to go on aliyah l'rega. But here it says regolim, and it doesn't say shalosh regolim, therefore we assume it means twice. On 2 occasions, he encountered the Yetzer Hara for this sin and he overcame the temptation. Yesh la hakshos. No, sorry. Kevin Shabbat, this is the Marshal. Kevin Shabbat, Vera Zuliyad ha'adam shtei pa'am v'yom b'nisag lo nichshal ba harei hurgol lehachnias yitzro shelo lichto ba. He quotes a Gemara that if he violates an aver twice, also that's enough to make him hurgal ba. Wow, that's a whole nother shot here. Yes, shomer ben achet me'apam hashlishis bi'elach. He's saying, I'm just throwing this out here. I know this is certainly not simple shot. It might help us. He says, when it says Ragle Chasida of Yishmar, it's a person who is Ragil B'chesed. And therefore, when a sin comes to tempt him, Hashem will protect him from sin because of the chesed. I'll read it again. Misha hinig atzmo b'chesed shtei pa'amim yeshomer min achet me'apam hashlishis bi'elach. It's a little bit ambiguous. Now, yesh shemakshin omer b'gemara shakadosh baruch hu shomer also min achet v'shuvei nechote. What about free choice? And furthermore, Matzinu Adam Sheyahet Sadik V'Chata Rak B'Sof Yoma Who Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Gemara says about Yochanan Kohen Gadol that he served as a Kohen Gadol for 80 years, and at the end he became a tzduki. 80 years he was overcoming any temptation. Why didn't that afford him with protection? Tosis Yeshadim answers Shema Adam Holech B'Derech Lo Tova B'Chavana. If a person makes that decision that he wants to go down the wrong path, certainly he'll be tripped up. Even if most of his years are behind him, and even if he has overcome his Yetzer Hara, but now he's holech b'derech lo tova. He's in a sense exposing himself, pursuing evil. And when the pasuk says Raglei Chasida Yishmar, Hainu Shemikan v'elech misayim lo harvi min shamayim litoyer u'liskadesh below amel. He will be given extra support by God, but at the end of the day, he still has his own freedom of choice. We're not denying the freedom of choice. We're saying that because on so many occasions he has passed all the tests God will afford him with that extra tara and extra kedusha power, that he should be able to overcome his Yetzer Hara. Amar Reish Lakish will conclude with Reish Lakish. My Siv, what does the pasuk in Mishlei mean? Im la leitzim hu yolitz v'la novim yitein chen. And Reish Lakish says, Bal etame. If a person is looking for contamination, he wants to be a Racha, posted law, will up in Shemayim, they'll decide to open up all the doors, they'll let him go the way he wants to go. But the flip side, Abol Tire, if he's choosing the right approach and he is motivated to purity, then Misayimo. So here too, from the heavens, they will give him support. So if a person is coming with Chaber Lileitzin, is who may atzmo yolitz. Me'ashamayim lo yisayu v'lo yibnu. Im la'anavim lemida tovu ba is Hashem yisayelo v'yiteg lo chen. Okay, then Rabbi will say, so Mirza Hashem b'li neder, we're going to try and experiment tomorrow, and we'll look at the last parak in Masechet Yomi. And it's going to be a great challenge. We'll see how it goes. Thank you so much.